We lied. We lied. We lied. We lied. We lied.
Because 79403 inflicted all 10 aces on me. What if I told you that if your ace score is 5 or higher, you have been deemed a risk to society? Not only have we been given the mark of being a risk to society, with 5 or more aces, we are more likely to pick up addictions like alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, nicotine, and popping pills. All because a zip code inflicted adverse childhood experiences on you or somebody else that you love. This is why aces matter to me.
Who's ready? Who's ready about some adverse childhood experiences? We got some viewership already. We got people logging on to see what did we come to the table to talk about today. We got some faces in here. We got some people representing Texas. We got St. Louis in the house. We got Atlanta, Georgia's in the house. And we got Kansas City, Missouri in the house. Show up, show up. Let's let people get on a little bit. Thank y'all for being here tonight. We are super excited to do our third broadcast of Aces Matter. How's it sound? Can y'all hear pretty good? We are representing. If we got some viewership, for those of y'all that are viewing tonight, please drop your zip code. We're trying to see where people coming from tonight because we got some good stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to bring it to the table with what we know about trauma bonding. What do we know? What we got to say about trauma bonding? We got Randy Tate's checking in. What's up? So before we get started, can we do some introductions so that people, viewership, can know who's online and what we bring to the table? Let's get started. We got Marcy. Why don't you kick us off?
I am Marcy Jones, 76015. My superpower is the Most High, because without him, I am nothing, and he is working on me with creativity and networking and connections.
Come on, Darnell, you got next. What's up, Darnell?
My name is Darnell, representing 79403. And as Marcy said, my superpower is definitely the Most High. But what he has also given me is to be an encouraging to others. Because even in that word, there's a superpower trapped inside of it, and that's courage.
Okay, I'll bite. I'm Shamara Moore. I am representing 2 zip codes, 2003 in Washington, D.C. and 33161 in Miami, Florida. I'm here in Kansas City, and my superpower is most definitely love and the unconditionality of it. Like that higher power you guys were talking about, I'm really good at just seeing you for who the Lord has a purpose for you to be.
I'm trying to keep my mic viewership. We're trying to keep our mics on mute so y'all can really get what we're trying to say. We got some good stuff coming out, so we're trying to like make sure the mics are what's up. Can y'all hear me? Y'all can't hear me? That's messed up. Y'all can't hear me. You can't hear me.
I can hear Cindy. I can't hear Nadia.
I was muted.
Can y'all hear me though? No? Anyhow, go. It's your turn. Who's next?
Nadia, we didn't hear you. No, we can't hear you.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Tamaji, introduce yourself. We rolling. Introduce yourself. And Nadia, when you come back.
All right. Hey guys, I'm Jumanji, Bentley Lewis. I'm representing 79403. Club City, like the first two, hey, my superpower is the Most High Yahweh. That's who keeps me motivated, but uh, helps me try to motivate other individuals. And I just feel as a law enforcement officer, I'm there to definitely save lives, and in that inkling, hopefully I can save a soul with every individual I make contact with.
Awesome. Who we got next? Nadia, we gonna wait on Nadia to come back, and she working with that new iPhone 12. She got that new, she got that new iPhone life, so we gonna wait for her to come back. Well, I'm Cindy Stanford, and I'm the founder and president of ACEs Matter. We are using our platform not only to talk about adverse childhood experiences, but make sure that anybody that's viewing us tonight can relate to what we're trying to get out. So we do this show for 4 reasons. There are 4 aces in any deck of cards. And we bring this show to you absolutely free, sharing whatever we can, what knowledge we have that we think is going to help you or somebody you know. We do this show because we know that by talking about adverse childhood experiences, we are going to bring awareness to the table by talking about adverse childhood experiences. We do this show because we know that we are challenging previously learned things that no longer serve us in 2021. As much as we love our heritage and the way we grew up and all the zip codes we represent, and we do this show because we need to challenge some things that we learned back when that really ain't helping us in 2021. We also do this show because we know that by encouraging you all that are coming from situations where you didn't have control of the zip code you were dropped in, we want to use what we know to try to encourage people who decide to tune in and take away something, whether you from the zip codes we represented or whether you are in the vicinity of somebody who needs to hear this. This is why we're showing up. You are always free to donate, because when you donate, we can continue to bring our services here. And most importantly, when people donate to ACEs Matter, we take that money and we make sure that people who need help after they realize that, hey, something in my childhood might be creeping up in my adulthood, we can send them to people like Candace Cox, who specializes and understands what adverse childhood experiences do. So we want to make sure that nobody feels like they don't have a place to go or money to pay for. So when y'all donate, we use our resources to make sure that we can find people the help that they need once they decide that, hey, I'm ready to get past this place where I am in life. So we're going to show up. And tonight we passing the mic. We go past the mic. We got some serious conversation. We want to know, like, man, why I keep running back to these same type of dudes or these same type of girls? What is it? What is it, me? Or no, it's them. So we're going to try to figure out, is there some sort of connection to the type of people we mate with and date with that might be coming from our childhood? What could be rolled up and why I'm choosing these relationships? And Tamanji's going to bring to us his experience of what it's like when he has to answer calls that ACEs consider to be domestic violence. When he's having to answer those calls, what it's like for him showing up in a situation where love is involved. Am I right? Tamanji? So we're going to do that. So if y'all stay with us, we promise to engage you, and we'd love to have some people say that they want to get in the show. We got some really good things coming up. And I'm going to start off with Brother Darnell. Last time you led us in prayer when we showed up. But this time I'm wondering, because we call this Throwback Thursdays, we know that historically there's a lot of things in the Bible, right? There's some verses in the Bible that probably if we twisted them up a little bit in 2021, we get a little bit of humor out of them. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Brother Darnell, there's this story about these 2 characters called Samson and Delilah, right?
Right.
And I was talking to Brother Darnell earlier. It's like we're getting ready to get in this conversation about how we date and how we mate, and how we just be like attracted to these people that may not be good for us. Can you tell us a little bit about Samson and Delilah in a Tyler Perry kind of way, how that would go down if it was 2021?
So Samson and Delilah, 2021 Tyler Perry, I would say it could be brought to you as a story about love, lust, and betrayal. And how, like you were just talking about, how sometimes we are attracted to those things that are detrimental to us, but no matter how detrimental they are, we still keep going back. Yeah.
Give me some more. I mean, why should we care about what happened with Samson and Delilah? Like, what does that have to do with domestic violence and being in relationships that's not good for
Well,
us?
well, Samson was chosen by God at a he had a calling on his life to be a Nazarite call. Um, Samson was one of those that, even despite his upbringing, he still chose to go down a path that was contrary to the will of God. And as a result of it, it leads him down a path that he soon regrets later on. And just like a lot of us, we enter into situations or situationships that if we'd have just followed the course of God from the beginning, then we wouldn't have to backtrack and come back to it later to get back on track. And that's what Samson did. Samson chose to go down a different path than what God had called him to, and he paid for it dearly.
That's what's up. All right, Candace. Did you get to introduce yourself loud and clear earlier? I kind of felt like I'm looking around like, y'all, we know we were supposed to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but things don't be working out and we just rolling with it. We just gonna roll with it. Candace, why don't we not only introduce you right now, but I'm curious, if you was Samson's therapist back in the day, first tell us who you are and then tell us what Samson might have needed to hear with that whole Delilah situation, that girl that wasn't right for him.
My name is Candace Cox, and I am a licensed clinical social worker out of St. Louis. 63118 is my zip code. And I specialize in intergenerational and environmental trauma. And one thing that Samson needed to know, like a whole lot of other people that are out here, is that everything that looks good isn't good for you. And everything that feels good isn't good for you. Definitely.
Everything that feels good isn't good for. But what? Like, how was he supposed to know? I mean, we gonna get back to that, Darnell, brother, because I know you got more of that story that's like super juicy. If Tyler Perry was writing it, right? But I want to know from the panel. We just gonna pass the mic on the panel. Is there a such thing as misplaced love? Is there a such thing as misplaced love? Tune in. Pass the mic.
Oh, well, for me, I definitely, oftentimes, we find ourselves falling for people that represent the patterns that we've had in our lives. And so whatever we learned, however we learned about love, those are the things that we're going to be attracted to. And so if it's not a healthy type of love that we got, then we're going to go toward that unhealthy type of love. And we're going to think that that is the right thing. And it's going to be misplaced because it's what we learned. And we can only do what we know how to do until we learn how to do something different.
Pass the mic.
I disagree. I don't think that love is ever misplaced. I do think that how we love is often misplaced. And you can have a great concept of love, but because of some other aces that came up, you can end up with someone and love them in a way that they're not ready for. And so I definitely think that you should love. I still love them, but for 1,800 miles away. That's how I need to love him. I need to love him from a very long distance. But yeah, I definitely don't think that love is always the best policy. But you have to have enough of that same love for yourself to know how to love that person.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just going to say, I definitely agree. The one thing about love is consistent. Just individuals that's loving is not always consistent. And we do things that are contrary to love. I believe when God designed love, I mean, he designed it to be unconditional and sacrificial, and that love is it's one thing that stays the same regardless. It's just the individuals possessing it and how they give it out where it becomes the issue. Because I mean, in that case, just to put this on it, like we know God loves us unconditionally, despite our aces, despite our problems, despite our troubles, despite the iniquity, the shame, the things that we go through. His love never wavers. But of course, we're not God and we're not the Lord, but he gives the perfect example of what love is. We just have a hard time following that example.
Nadia, I'm going to come in because Nadia, I think your mic might be working now. So you pass the mic to you, introduce yourself. What's your opinion?
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Sorry, I am Nadia. I have been a licensed nurse for 10 years now. I have a background in psychiatric care, from pediatrics to prisons to state hospitals. And so, yeah, for the last 10 years, that's what I've done. I also hold the title of Miss West Texas 2019-2020, to where my platform is actually mental health awareness for our troops and prisoners that have been exonerated. And within all those things, love is definitely needed. They say love is patient, love is kind. It's a learning process, in my opinion.
Let's move. I want to pick this apart because we brought viewers here tonight. Thank y'all for sharing too. We brought people here because there's these things that we grew up being told about love. Some of us, just really depending on your situation. So because this is a Throwback Thursday, we want to highlight that there is this adverse childhood experience question that asks, did you grow up in a home where there was domestic violence, like physical violence between adults? And I want to ask, like, the people that are on the panel and even the people that are tuning in, what is your understanding of domestic violence? Because I grew up understanding it was just mom and daddy fighting. Am I correct about that, Candace? Or could there be other ways to consider what that question means when it asks about domestic violence? I'm passing the mic.
A lot of people think that is just, man and woman. But, if you grew up in a house where there was violence within your home, period, that's domestic, and that's something that we have to understand. And so, like, a lot of times, we think that, okay, my mama wasn't being abused in the home, but you had a sibling that was beating the brakes off of somebody, that still taught you certain things, and that still impacted you. And we have to understand that the impact of violence does do something to us.
For me, in my home, everybody was violent. My sister's always scraping things off the dresser. My dad was slapping her in the face. She was running away. My middle sister's running into the room screaming, I hate you all. And it was just weird. Okay. It was, and my mother was already abused from our biological father, which I didn't know. My mother's just aloof to everything happening, right? She just standing in the kitchen, bless her heart, singing Amazing Grace. All these other things are happening. For me, I'm just sitting in the closet, sitting in the corner, sitting in my room. And I'm a lover, not a fighter, but I came from a fighting home that was just very strange, and I just real quick want to go back to the love being misplaced. I don't think love can be misplaced. Like you said, we are called to love one another. It is a joy and a pleasure to love each other. It's the loyalty and respect that is misplaced. So once boundaries are crossed, that love has to still be given, but you have to pull yourself back for safety. You have to stop the toxic. You have to love yourself enough and respect yourself enough to step away. So the love isn't misplaced. We gave that freely, and we still do. It flows from us. But that God said, you got to let go, child, because you're mine. And right now he's not. So you can't get what's yours if you don't let go of that. Your loyalty and respect and service is among the best, but it's misplaced. That's what God told me in my deliverance, in my moment of extreme abuse as an adult. So I think the love is what it is, but the rest of it has to be looked at and dealt with quickly.
And I have to agree with what she says. Just as a follower of the Most High Yahweh, He gave us particular laws, statutes, commandments that we have to follow. And He gave us 5 of them. One was moral laws, the other was marriage, ceremonial, dietary, and sacrificial. Sacrificial is no longer here. But I focus on those first 2. He gave us moral, and He gave us those marriage. I mean, within that marriage or within a relationship, we have to have, that's why I gave us moral laws. There's certain things that you have to do more. There's certain ways that you have to treat your husband, you have to treat your wife. Certain ways you got to build each other up.
Can I pass the mic to Manji? I want to pass the mic. So before, Manji has some stats he's going to share with us. And earlier I was talking about the question, Candace, that asked, did you grow up in a family that there was domestic violence? There was one. I want to know, in your opinion, your expert opinion, what do domestic violence, trauma bonding, and ACEs have in common, if anything?
So you think about it, you look at the type of relationships that you get into. So I'll even give my own personal experience. So my mother grew up in a home where there was a lot of domestic violence. And so because of that, she was on the other end of the spectrum where in her mind, no one was ever going to put their hands on her, but she became the aggressor. And so when she was in relationships and I was growing up, I'd never seen a man hit a woman, but I saw a woman be very aggressive toward a man. And so, it was a flip of it. And so that had an impact on me as I got older, because of what happened with me, what my mother saw, the intergenerational trauma, what I saw, and then coming into my relationships, I was more passive in my relationships. And so there was a trauma bond that was there based on, I married my mother and my father in the same person. And so basically a lot of the behaviors that my mother had, I was attracted to in my husband because that's what I knew. And then a lot of the toxic and adverse childhood experiences that I got from my father, my ex, he exhibited the same thing. And so, that's how it travels and that's how it's all intermingled, because I was attracted to what I knew. I was attracted to the patterns that I was raised in, and I was attracted to what I was comfortable with. And that was it, because I didn't know any different. I had no other reference to use.
Pass the mic, somebody else.
So my childhood experience was with a Bible believing mother that, didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't drink, everything all good. But my father left when he found out she was pregnant. And so I had this, and then I was primed for abuse because I was taught, oh, you're supposed to try to be like Jesus. You're supposed to turn the other cheek. She taught me to not fight back. If they hit you, you don't hit them back. And she was proud of me when I would get beat up. And so when I got into a relationship, which I immediately did, I just wanted a man to stay. And pretty much whatever he did in the staying was okay because he stayed. He didn't abandon me. He stayed. And so when he's telling me that everything that I know love to be is wrong, and he's telling me that everything I'm doing is wrong, he's 7 years older than I am. I'm a new mother. I just had a baby at 16 and met him a couple of weeks later. And I think that this is the answer to prayer. This is a father to raise my child and to help me. I'm trying to go to college and all of this stuff. So I ended up in a very abusive and toxic relationship for 20 years. That, of course, just went from what people don't consider abuse: yelling, constant put downs, never being able to do anything right, making you doubt your own perceptions and your own thoughts and your own choices. That's how it all started. And it culminated in a beatdown that I was finally able to walk away from, because I had been praying for this beat down for years. Like, Lord, just let him come and just beat me down for no reason, and then I'll be able to get out. So I definitely feel like that ace of that father being gone, on top of the poverty. My mother had 12 children. Just all of that made me really susceptible and vulnerable. And then being pregnant at 16, coming from a religious family. So it was just like everything kind of primes you, those aces in there kind of primes you. So my parenting was great. That's what got you through. But then that was all flipped on its head when my first love went from being Jesus and trying to please Jesus and trying to please God with my actions and words to trying to please this man that was never going to be pleased. Cindy said something that was so impactful the other day. She said, the flesh is never going to be satisfied with you.
So I'm curious, like, thank you, Shamar, for sharing that. Like, I want our viewers to walk away, not just hearing us be so super vulnerable, like tell our stories to all these strangers, but love to hear from the men too. But from a medical or from a standpoint, Candace, from where you coming from, like sometimes, like you said, like mamas just don't know how to leave. They don't know how to leave for whatever reason. So can we talk loud and clear? What does this do to the child, right? When mama just can't get up and leave, or daddy can't get up and leave, or whatever the situation. Can you describe to us what is happening in the mind and body of a child that is just a byproduct of adult drama?
Well, one thing we have to understand is that our children are experiencing life with us. And so the things that we're going through, they're going through it as well. And they're going through it with an underdeveloped mind. And so they don't have the ability to make sense of everything that's going on. And oftentimes, even the adults don't have the ability to fully make sense of what's going on. And so you take a child, and I apologize because this may be a trigger warning. This is a trigger warning. You take a child that is in a home and their nervous system is completely activated because they don't feel physically or emotionally safe. And so because they don't feel physically and emotionally safe, they either fight, flight, or freeze. And so they have to decide in this moment, like, okay, my mom or my daddy is being beaten here. Do I hide? Do I flee? And do I hide? Do I fight and try to help my mama or my mama or my daddy? Or do I shut down completely and completely disassociate my emotions and just try to keep moving and act like it's not happening? And so when our babies develop these types of skills, they go with us into adulthood. And then you wonder why you have young ladies or young men that are always fighting. Well, in some place they've been triggered and they don't feel physically or emotionally safe. And whatever they went through when they went through what they were going through, they're not going to let that happen to them again. They're going to be in control this time. And so that's what happens. Or you have individuals that won't stay in relationships. They're constantly fleeing. That's because I don't like how this makes me feel. I can't deal with this. Or you have individuals that are completely detached from relationships. And it's like, I'm just on autopilot. I'm waking up to go to sleep. And that's because of a learned behavior, because this is what I had to do to survive when this was happening to me and I didn't have any control. So now I'm going to try to do the best I can with what I got. And we don't recognize sometimes that when we're out of the situation, we're still operating 90% from our subconscious and 10% from our conscious brains. So that means that 90% of the things that we do are based off of the experiences we've already been through. So we don't have
hit us with that stat one more time. 90%.
Yeah, we operate 90% from our subconscious brain and 10% from our conscious brain. That means 90% of the things that we do are based off of something that's already happened in our lives. So when we are presented with something, our brain within a millisecond runs it, and it's like, oh, I dealt with something like this before. But if it was toxic and jacked up and traumatized the first time, it's gonna be toxic, traumatized, and everything the 100,000th time that you do it until you unlearn that that's not okay and relearn a new way of doing things.
So for our viewership, thank you, Candace. Thank you, Shamar. I'd love to. We're gonna hear from Tamangi in just a minute, but before I pass the mic to Tamangi, I think a big takeaway from just talking about just physical violence, verbal violence in homes. Let's count the aces that a kid is going to get from that experience. One, we got the domestic violence, right? Typically, domestic violence also leads to emotional neglect, because if mama or daddy constantly fighting, you ain't got time to be worried about my little 6-year-old needs and this kid that's bullying me at school and the teacher that won't call on me in class, or the 13-year-old little girl who said, I got picked. You don't have time for that. So I'm going to think you're going to get another point from emotional neglect. I'm also say that if domestic violence is happening in the house, it causes emotional neglect for the kid because you can't be there. But then probably somebody in that house probably depressed, and it's probably going to be the adult that's losing the fight, right? So the question asked, did you live with somebody that was depressed or mentally ill or something like that? So you already gave this baby 3 aces. All right, give me another one, Candace. There's got to be another one that could physical neglect. Physical neglect could probably roll up in there because
if somebody is being domestically, if there's some domestic abuse going on, there's probably some emotional abuse going on.
There we go. That's 4. If y'all can see my hand, that's 4.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and it possibly, if there's some domestic violence going on with the adults, it's possibly some physical abuse going on with the child as well.
Yes, that's 5.
So boom, there we go. 5. Yeah.
So Marcy, I want to pass the mic to you. You shared a stat with me from I guess a training or something that you had run across. But what does society have to say about people who coming in being dropped in with 5 or more aces?
When I first took my test, I just trying to figure out who I was. I went back to birth to figure out who I was. Thought I had messed up, but I took this test online, stopabusecampaign.com, I believe, and I had 9 aces. And I would like to say that I'm an exception to the rule, not to brag, but because there are so many people, once you see that on paper, wow, and there are people out there who are stuck in these situations. I mean, I'm alone, I'm by myself, okay, but there are people that are still living this and don't know about this. But once you are over 5 or more, you're considered a risk to society. So my heart is for the adult aces, because we didn't know until we knew, right? We're adults. Our lives are, they're upside down, and we didn't know. And now we're labeled a risk to ourselves or to society or to our children. And we didn't even know that this test existed. Our spirit is broken at a very early age. And if we do not know Jesus, if we do know Jesus, we're not mature Christians yet. So we're not matured in spirit. So our spirit was broken so very early, and before we even knew what a spirit was. So now we're older, and at some point you crack, you can't go any further. Jesus picks up the cross and carries you, but your energy now, your spirit is so low, you have to be with God and build that back up and work hard to fight through this. Otherwise, you end up in jail or prison or still an addict or back on the streets or trafficked. It's just horrible, and nobody's out there helping. If we don't help the adults, the children don't get better. The cycle just keeps going. So yes, you're labeled as a risk. So then you are, there's things that the world knew that we didn't know. There were things that my abuser knew about me that I didn't know that he used to abuse me. And that's disgusting. And I was an adult, and I shouldn't have had to experience that. So I can only imagine what these little babies are experiencing. And I'm curious to listen to Tamangi on the law enforcement side, because everyone is not on board. Everyone isn't understanding, and we need awareness so incredibly bad in this area. I said more than you wanted, Cindy, but yes, it's not even right that we are labeled as a risk to ourselves or to society when in my opinion, it was done to us. And there needs to be some accountability and responsibility, because we are taking accountability and responsibility for ourselves now and helping others and bringing people up as we go. Sorry.
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Marcy. Mm-hmm. Hit us with walk us through what it's like for you showing up to these calls that you have been to multiple times with the same relationship. Can you walk us through what it's like for you and some of the statistics with police officers or whatever you can share with us to help us paint a picture of what you have to experience from a law enforcement side when you get in the middle of these trauma bonds?
Yes. One thing I would like to start off with is a lot of individuals kind of wonder why police officers. So you have so many police officers responding to a call where just maybe two people involved in this call. The reason there's so many police officers, we don't know what we're getting into. The heat is up, the passion is up, so that becomes a dangerous call for us. And like I said, we don't know what we're coming into. We may get a call, maybe a husband and wife having a verbal altercation, but I don't know what that husband has behind his back. I don't know what she has behind her back. We're trying to break up this toxic, this volatile situation, and that's how most of our officers end up either killed or seriously injured. As men, we feel like I know I am. I'm the head of my house. Me and my wife make a joke. I always say that I wear the pants in the house, but she tells me which pair to wear. That's kind of a little joke that we got going on here. But a man feels like I'm not going to let another man come into my house or into my family and tell me what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. I'll pay the mortgage here. I live here. You don't. So you're not going to come here and tell me what I need to do. You're not going to tell me what I need to do with my woman. So that's how those tensions kind of get flared up. At the same time, you may have. I'm working I think a good verbiage for this. I work in a country atmosphere, should I say. I work in a rural atmosphere. A lot of mobile homes, a lot of family lives in these mobile homes up in the mountains. So we go there, it's almost like one way in, one way out. I'm responding to a call. So I don't know if Uncle Bob and Uncle Tom is going to jump on me because I'm going to have to handle a situation with their brother-in-law. So you're pretty much caught in a no-win situation. So that's one reason why you see so many police officers. But second part, you asked about calls. I spoke to you once about a call that I went to. That's always going to stick in the back of my mind. I was, midnight is generally our relaxed time. Never a time to relax, but kind of sitting back, taking care of some reports. I get a woman walk up to me, bleeding, screaming, and she tells me a dog bit her. And so after call, I'm calling for the ambulance to come help. Turns out to be, she starts going into more detail. She didn't go into detail until the ambulance arrived, but they just a few days prior dealt with her. And I knew her from before from some domestic violence cases. I knew her before from some narcotics cases. It turned out to be her boyfriend had a pit bull dog, and they got into altercation. And he's trained the pit bull very well, and just like anybody would train their police canine to do things on command. So he commanded the dog. She wanted to leave the house. He wasn't going to let her leave the house. So he gave his dog the command, attack. So the pit bull had her in the back of the house. You know how pit bulls are. When they hold on, when they latch on, they hold on. And she probably weighed 85, 90 pounds at most. And she's trying to fight this big pit bull. And finally, she was able to get away. She went through the back window. She jumped through the back window once the dog released. And she took off running when she found me. So once the ambulance started looking, once they looked at her and everything, it turns out to be like, hey, we just dealt with this lady a couple of days ago. Yeah, the 3-inch gash wrapped inside her spine where the same dog did the same thing because he gave the order, he gave the command for the dog to do it, but yet she went back into that situation. Fast forward, I had to sit on trial for that particular case. And she was back in the house again, and I can't think of the name of the advocacy group that was there. There was an advocacy group there for women. She pretty much got on the stand and she pretty much lied about everything that had happened, stated that she made the dog upset, the dog bit her, but that's not what happened. From the report that I had initially taken. So it was pretty much her word against mine, and while he's sitting there smiling, he runs a dealership in this area, so he's really, really known to be a good guy, but I've dealt with him plenty of times in the past. So we see this quite often when these men get into these situations with a person that they claim they love, or either that person is a provider, the provider, and they don't want to turn that person in. For her, it was multiple things. Number one, I know she was a known narcotics. We call this meth mountain where we live. That's where they produce a lot of meth up in the mountains. So he has pretty deep pockets, so he provides her with meth. He provides her with a roof over her head. He provides food and shelter for her children. So once we take him away and we take him out of that household, where's her fix going to get filled at? How are her kids going to eat? Where is she going to live because she's already burned the bridges with her family? So those are the things that we run into. Those are the things that make it dangerous for us once again. So I may go to this house to try to eliminate this person who's the predator in this relationship, and not necessarily is the aggressor going to be the person that's probably going to take my life. It's going to be the victim, because the victim feels, hey, this is the guy. No, this man loves me. This man's taking care of my house. He's taking care of me. He's taking care of my family. I'm not going to let you walk out of here with him. And next thing I know, back of my head may be gone. I may get stabbed in the back, because the victim doesn't want her provider, the offender, out of her life. So they don't know what to do. It goes like other way around. Just, like I said, I may step into their house, and he's like, no, this is my house. You're not coming in here. Next thing I know, I'm having a fight for my life with him. So it's kind of one of those catch-22 circumstances. And that's why you see so many police officers arrive on DV calls. And fortunately, we see the same people over and over and over again. And it takes the state.
We got to get Candace, talk to us. Candace, and then pass the mic to Shamar. Why do they keep going back? Like, I know you alluded to it, but two things. Why we keep going back, and I know we're going to talk about what's his name that kept going back to Delilah's house, but why we keep going back, and what is this teaching the kids that have developing brains at this time?
I mean, basically it's the patterns. And so, we go back, like whenever I have a client, I always ask, who taught you that? Where did you learn that from? Because you had to learn it somewhere. And if we look at it, and if we go back and we look at, post-traumatic slave syndrome, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have been taught for years to just take it. Like, that's what we've been taught, to just keep moving forward. Well, it's not that bad. He's still paying your bills. Well, it's not that bad, because what else is out there? And we've been taught for so long we operate out of fear. Well, let me deal with what I got, because I don't know what else is out there. And that's just being honest. And then you go back and you look at some other parts, some other components of it, where if I was taught that this is what love is, because in some situations, some people grow up that you don't love me if you're not hitting me. You don't love me if you're not aggressive towards me. You don't love me if you're not possessive over me. Like, you don't love me. And so it's like, that's the mindset. And if we don't have any other tools, if we don't have anything else in our toolbox to go to, we're going to keep doing the same things over and over again. We operate from what we know, and we can't knock people for what they don't know. That's not fair.
What we know. When you was going to say something, Shamar, pass the mic.
I just had a question for the officer. So, what would you tell women who are in these situations and in these abusive relationships, and they are afraid to call the police because they have already been told, like, just like you said, if a police officer come up in here, I'm going to do A, B, and C. And then that now a police officer is coming up in your house, and there's 3 Black men in this house, because I have 2 sons. So I never called the police. It wasn't until the final incident, and I didn't call the police then. I pretended everything was fine, and I snuck out like 2 days later to go to the store and ended up in a secluded shelter. And so I was afraid to call the police. I never called the police on this van the whole time we were together, being choked out, being smacked to the floor, little different things like that. I would never call the police because I was afraid of what might come from the police coming there. I didn't want anybody to get killed. I didn't want anybody to get hurt. And once you call the police or you call your cousin Day Day, and tell him this dude is doing ABC. Like, so I couldn't tell anybody. I was the strong one. I was the breadwinner. I was the educated one. I was the professional one. I was the person that helped everybody else. So it was nobody for me to tell. Because if I tell my crazy siblings, they ready to kill him. And if you call the police, you don't have no idea what's going to happen. So what would you say to women who are afraid to call the police, afraid to get the police involved in the first place because of the history of how police respond?
I want Candace and Tamanger, either one of y'all. Like, what's your professional advice from a therapist standpoint and then officer standpoint? That's a good question.
I get asked that question often in different situations. Now, I always hear the statement, we know how the police are going to respond. I have a question for you. How do the police respond?
I said, I don't know how the police are going to respond. I don't know if they're going to come in and Terry is going to act the whole entire fool and they're going to put half.
Oh, she didn't name drop. She didn't name drop. Did you just name drop?
She didn't name drop. I don't know if he's going to act out of control to try to control them and they going to have to defend themselves. I don't know if my sons are going to be caught in the crossfire. Like I said, I don't want anyone to be hurt. So I don't know if he going to do what he said he would do. So I was just stuck. Like, I don't want anyone to get hurt. So, and then I was always taught to like avoid confrontation, you know, walk away, forgive 70 times 70. I was taught to read with the Bible itself. Like, that's how I was taught to read. No fairy tales. So I'm supposed to forgive, and you don't leave a man when he's down. You pick him up. You help him.
Me and Darnell both was like, "Oh, that's a good." You didn't move both of us over here.
But you don't leave a man when he's down. You pick him up. So when I found out about all the lies, I was like, "Yeah, I can help. He's helping me. I can help him. We can help each other." But that aside, like, what do you tell somebody that has seen police come in and things go all the way left?
Yes, and that happens quite often. That's why we stated that that's one of the most dangerous calls for us to have to come on. You know, it's never an easy way to tell a woman how to handle a situation like that. Me personally, I mean, I've told women, hey, because I'm a RAD instructor. I don't know if you know what RAD is. It's called rape aggression defense. So I teach defensive tactics to women. Unfortunately, just things like that happen, and it's one of those mind things that men will tell the woman or whomever they're abusing. Hey, if they come over here, I'm gonna take them out. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. But that's that fear that they put into you. But 9 times out of 10, when I'll say 8 times out of 10, when that police officer arrives and it's another male, and some more men, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to escalate that high. But again, it may. We always have to be prepared. Nobody wants to see anybody get hurt. But I always tell women, hey, it's for your safety. I mean, we're trained for these type things. Unfortunately, they don't go the way we want them to go. At the end of the day, whoever he is, he's a man. He makes his own decisions. But I feel like it's for your safety to do what you need to do to get out of the situation. If you got to call us out of the situation, call us get out of the situation. There's no way you're going to know if nobody says anything. But like I've seen plenty of women that had to act like they're going to the store and they have to get out of the situation. And you can never tell a woman how to get out of the situation. I've never had. I just can't do that. Unfortunately, like I said, things do go south. They go south real bad. Unfortunately, in the month of April, 2020, there were 690,000 reported cases of domestic violence. This was during COVID. This was just April. Let's just round it off to 700,000. Keyword, reported cases, not cases, but reported. Out of those cases, over 35,000 victims lost their lives. So that's how serious domestic violence is. I mean, a lot of these women who aren't going to say anything.
And in support of what the officer is saying, being out of that relationship now for 5 years and still working on healing, when you're in the situation, it is so frightening. It is so scary. You are in constant fear. You don't know what this person going to do. You listening to what he is saying. But in defense of this officer, this man has never put his hands on another man in the 20 years I've known him. He has only put his hands on me or children. No matter what he has said, oh, I'm gonna beat the brakes off this person, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I've never seen him put his, and now I realize that he's not gonna put his hands on no man. He's gonna be real quiet when confronted with another man. So now I know, oh, I should have been called the police. But I mean, that's hindsight and after 5 years of healing. So in defense of what this officer is saying, it's very possible that when someone is abusing you, someone is putting their hands on you, someone is putting their hands on your children, they are more likely a complete and utter coward.
Just like you said, I see this so often. I hear about this so often. Well, I see this quite often. A lot of the victims that I've run into, everybody's situation is different. This abuser has pretty much segregated them from their families. They have no friends. They've been abused so often. It's like when I hate to use an analogy, it's like when you train a puppy. You train that puppy that I'm the alpha of this house, so what I do and what I say is what that goes. So that puppy's not going to pay attention to anybody else. You're the person that puppy's going to focus on. So you're the God to that puppy. So it's almost like a God complex that these individuals want to put in you and put that fear into you.
Can I say something here? And listening to a lot of what has been said, one of the things that I think about also is oftentimes people come out of those situations physically, but they never leave mentally.
Mentally,
And that's one of the
healing.
things that happens. And until the mind is renewed, you will constantly find yourself back to the same situation.
Yes. Yes.
Common story, just a quick story in the Bible. The children of Israel were in captivity for over 400
Let
years.
my people go.
Moses delivered them and brought them out of bondage and the trauma bonds. Now they came out physically, but mentally they still wanted to go back to what they were used to.
That's
And
what
so
they
until
knew.
we break that cycle mentally, we're always going to find ourselves being able to go back into that situation. Because the first thing we say is, well, they love me. You don't know them like I know them. You don't understand them like I do. It's because you have convinced yourself mentally that it was okay to deal with that situation. You have convinced yourself that it's okay to stay in that situation. And like earlier, you was talking about how that reflects on the kids. Well, the kids see mama or daddy or however it goes being physically and mentally abused. So they learn that behavior and then they grow up and take it into their relationships because it was a learned behavior and it becomes the norm for them. But it's just kind of like Romans 12:2 says, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And until a person's mind is renewed, they will stay in that situation forever. You can't tell them nothing. It's kind of like this. You don't realize you're lost until you realize you lost. And then until you realize that you lost, then you will come out of that situation, or just like the children of Israel, you'll get tired of circling that same mountain. So they was brought out to come to see a promised land, but they circled a mountain for 40 years in a journey that should have only taken 11 days. But because of where they were mentally, they kept doing the same thing over and over. And the sad part about it is this, and I'll be done, is millions came out, but only a few got to see the promised land. Everybody that came out, none of them got to see it because of the mental state, because of the mentality that they had. They stayed in their situations and they came out and they began to do things that were familiar to them, even when they were brought out of captivity. So when they were brought out of that captivity, they began to make golden images and worship calves and pray to false gods and all these things that they were used to doing because mentally they had not been delivered. And until that deliverance comes, but see, it's easier said than done though. It's something that you have to want to do. It's something that you have to seek that you want to do, because the thing about it is we can tell a person all day long what they need to do, but until they realize it for themselves, they will still be a slave mentally to that situation. And that is why they find themselves going from one abusive relationship to the next relationship, because they begin to attract the very thing that they are used to being in. All right, that's my little
Shamar's over there. Turn up. Look at you. I'm so glad we on mute because we all back here. Yes, preach, brother. Preach,
No,
brother.
ma'am, and no, sir. That women's clinic, that 30, that 90 days that I was there, and that counselor saying, okay, you done been through this. And I'm like, oh, I'm good now. I'm about to go get a place. I'm about to start off. She was like, listen, you were in this for 20 years. You think you're going to heal in 90 days, sis? I'm like, I got it together. I've been in the word. I'm ready. No. It was like the Twilight Zone. That dude popped back up 2 days after I got my place.
And that's part of the issue. We jump right back into something too soon. And here's the thing, physically, you may be fine, but you damaged and you still scarred and you have not healed. Emotional wounds take years to undo it. Like you say, you was in that situation for 20 years. So how in 90 days do you think you A-okay to go start something fresh and something new? And the problem is when we jump into them new situations, then we begin to take out that situation in the new situation. And anything that that person we get with, if they do something that's familiar or reminds us of that, the triggers that remind us of what we was in, then the relationship takes a turn, and then you start self-sabotaging, and then you start accepting different things, and you start just going through the motions, and before you know it, you right back in that same cycle because you didn't give yourself time to be delivered and completely healed from what you were previously going through. And I'll put this in here right quick. Candace talked about earlier saying she saw it from a standpoint of a woman abusing the man. And that's kind of like that story we was talking about with Samson and Delilah.
Yeah.
Samson put himself in a situation to where every time he told her a secret of where his strength came from, she used it against him. But because he was so caught up in that situation, he didn't realize the abuse that he was really suffering. So every time he told her, and he wake up the next morning and she say they here to get you, then he break the chains, he break the ropes, he break everything that had him bound. But the thing is, he was breaking what had him bound physically, but he wasn't breaking what had him bound mentally. And so because of that situation, he finally, I'm sure she, whatever that she had to do as a woman, saying, well, Samson, if you don't tell me this, and if you don't give in, and if you really love me, then you will
holding out. I'm holding out.
Yes, I'm gonna keep this away from you. And
Both
so
of us, Cindy.
eventually he gave in to what she asked him. And the thing about Samson that we have to realize too is he was physically strong, but he was mentally weak. And because of that weakness in his mind, it caused him to, watch this. He was once physically strong, but his strength became his weakness, and his weakness led to his blindness. Because when they finally captured him and took him into captivity, they blinded him. So, and it all began just because he chose to enter into a situation thinking, I just say this, at some point you would think if you begin to tell somebody about the aspects of your life and then they begin to use it against you each time, that should be a clear indicator that, hold on, I might need to leave this situation because they don't mean me no good. I'll say this and I'll be done. It's a scripture in the Bible that says, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. But the thing we have to remember is we got to make sure we not our own weapon that's formed against us that's keeping us from prospering. All right.
But Mr. Darnell, don't forget the Bible where she went through a whole situation where she just cried and cried and cried. And I'm reading this like, dude, you can't see through this.
Don't fall for that.
Totally manipulated. So the psychological abuse came before the turning in. She primed him.
And it did, but see, Samson attracted to the Philistine woman. And sometimes we become attracted to our distractions, and them distractions lead us down a path of turmoil and difficulties and get us in situations that if we would have just stayed course, because even his first wife was a Philistine woman. Even his first wife gave away secrets to a riddle that he had presented to people. So Samson went against the norm of everything that he was taught to do. And that's the problem of things sometimes that we we're taught to do, they become lifetime situations. Just like we talking about what we teach in the home, our children are watching. They are learning, and they are embedding that within themselves. And so if the child see mama going through abuse for 20 years, well, guess what she thinks is okay when she grows up and gets married. If the son sees the mama going through abuse, he grows up thinking, well, that was the norm in my home, so I can do the same thing because my mama stayed, so this woman will stay. But the problem is we speak to a lot of situations, but we don't change the mentality. And in our culture and in our community, we don't change the behavior. And so we continue the same pattern and the same cycle. Most of us from the 79403, and even y'all that are on here, and even some of the comments that I've read, we've experienced and seen this our whole life. I had a family member that I watched get beat, drugged by a face across the gravel, hit in the eye with hammers, over the head with vases. But she said, y'all don't know him like I know him, and he loves me. And when she left that situation, she went right back into another one. So, all right,
We're going to take that and we're going to switch right here because that gets deep. Y'all see how these aces get deep because I think we can all find a way to relate. And I want to be respectful of the moms that are listening tonight, right? There's some moms and daddies that's decided to tune in, grandmas, grandpas, whoever you are. I'd love for our closeout. I thank y'all for these contributions because it ain't easy. It ain't easy, like just putting yourself out there with these strangers. But ideally, for every ace story told could be an ace story prevented. So we are trying to help unnormalize, that ain't even a word, but we trying to help unnormalize some of this stuff and rewind. But I would like to close out with something people can take away beyond just our traumas that have put us where we are today. How do we talk to our kids about this? How do we explain what it means to be bonded to somebody by trauma? How do we open up a conversation in your viewpoint, Candace, or Nadia? How would you talk to your girl about relationships that are unhealthy? I would love for a couple of people to share that. And if there's somebody in the audience that has some advice, please comment because we want to see how would you talk to your kids about domestic violence or being attached to somebody that's unhealthy for them. Would you kick us off, Candace? I'm gonna pass the mic.
First and foremost, we have to not be afraid to raise our kids. And we have to not be afraid to have real conversations, because if we don't talk to our babies about what's going on in this world, they're going to experience it out here in this world. And so we have to also talk to our kids without shame. You know, our stories are our stories, and we don't have any reason to be ashamed of our stories because we did the best we could with what we had. And so, you know, let's not hide, you know, age appropriate now, but have real conversations with your children about what love is, and also teach them what love is. Real love is, what healthy love is. Talk to them about what unhealthy love looks like. Talk to them about the relationships they have in their lives, not just their romantic relationships, because there are many other relationships. Your friends can be abusive. Your cousins can be abusive. Your uncles can be abusive, you know, and so teaching them that. And one thing that I teach my children all the time, and I said, you know, you do not have to be a victim of other people's poor choices. And that's just across the board. That's not fair to you. And so you can love people, but you can love them from afar. And I say it all the time, air hugs and cyber kisses. And that's the realest thing ever. You know, where I can love you, but I won't because you don't love you the way that you need to love you, I can't let you hurt me. And teaching our children that you don't have to sacrifice yourself for somebody else, baby, at all. And that's the realest thing ever, because we may not know that. And even if we may have taught it through our actions, mamas and daddies, I need you to stop knocking yourself for what you did know and forgive yourself first, so that you are able to move out of your own way and break the curses. Because as long as you don't forgive you, then you won't be able to help your baby see. We got a skill. It's called get raw. We have to realize what the issue is, admit how it has affected us and what our role was in it, and then work to create a new normal. So parents, get raw with your babies. Realize, admit, and work through. Y'all got this. Nadia, would you like to add something before we close out? Like, you got a young daughter. How would you
take what you heard tonight to engage in a conversation with your adolescent?
Her dad was actually incarcerated. He was actually on the show last week, Rodney. Her dad was incarcerated when she was 2 months old. And so I think her best memory that she would have of meeting him for the first time was at age 3. My family did not agree with me telling her that her father was locked up. They wanted me to tell her, oh, he's out of town. He's gone away to college. You'll meet him one day. That's how I was taught. The world is filled with unicorns and rainbows. Everything was all good up until I got out of the house. So when I got out of the house, I'm like, this world is far from unicorns and rainbows. And the best quote that I live by is, a smart man, sorry, my phone's going dead, y'all. A smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from others' mistakes. And that's a little bit of a downfall on me because in my relationships, if I see something going left, I'm out. I'm not fixing to even set myself up to go through anything. I taught myself to be independent. If something looks like it's fixing to be shady, I'm out. And that, I mean, it may not be the right thing, but that's how it happened to me. My mother, her first marriage, 18 years. Her second marriage, 11 years. Her third marriage, 16 years until she was deceased last year. So it was always this thing of, oh, I can't wait till you get married. And unfortunately, my mom did not get to see me become married. And who knows when that'll happen. But I'm just learning, and I tell my daughter the truth. And some people disagree with that, but I feel like it's the best way to go, just telling them everything so that later it's not a surprise.
I teach 8th grade and I talk to my students about red flags. The big thing for me is me modeling behaviors for them. So like getting them to understand, like if somebody's yelling at you, if somebody's cursing at you, if somebody's putting you down and calling you names, it's a difference between criticism and growth feedback. And I'm dealing with 8th graders. So a lot of things have already happened and they already have perceptions of relationships, but they're deep into these relationships and situationships. They're deep into them. And if they don't have even a basic knowledge of what to not tolerate, and as somebody else said, the definition of love is all over my house. It's in my classroom. I bought the love language book and put it on their bookshelf in the classroom. So they looking at and they like, oh, good, this is some good stuff in here. And so just getting them the information because you want them to make informed choices. If somebody is lying to you and just everything that they has come out of their mouth is a lie, when you find out, you need to be out. Keep them in your prayers. But honey, that person is not there yet. If they hate themselves so much that they have to lie about even like where they live, who they live with, what school they go to, if they got to lie about everything about them, they don't love themselves. So they surely can't love you. So it's just
it looks like we have some interference. We got some interference with Shamara. So she's there, sister, but somebody trying to interfere with your story. But we do have to, y'all, this always gets good. We're going to be back every Thursday. Candace, you have been a blessing to our timeline. I can't wait to hear the chaos affirmation. Shamara, you cut out for a minute, but you still here with us. We already know what that energy was trying to like get in our way tonight, but we're going to keep going. But before we tune out, Nadia, two heartbeats. If I could send 2 heartbeats to Atlanta, Georgia, they right over there with you, sister. Thanks for sharing. Darnell, thanks for blessing us with how it's been chaos since the Bible was written. We just got to start paying attention to this chaos. There is nothing new, is it? There's nothing new in this world. He tells us. So there we go. Tamaja, shout out. Tamaja, let me get a plug in for who I represent.
So I want to say, y'all, I enjoy this. Every week we are tuning in. Candace is going to close us out with telling us a little bit about if you need some support once you start to uncover and identify your aces. She does this work full time. This is what she does. But before Candace closes us out by blessing us with what she does with chaos, Darnell's going to lock us down with a quick word of prayer. But again, I want to say thank y'all for tuning in. Share this message if you can, because the more people that learn about adverse childhood experiences, we can put a big old name on this. And Tamaji's wife is dope. I don't, you black people, I can't, you know, black people, they always be, can I want to shout out little JoJo, little JJ, let me send a shout out. Yeah, I'm gonna be done with y'all. I'm gonna be done with y'all. But real talk, Candace, bring it to us. Tell us about this chaos. What is the chaos affirmation? Because we don't want people to leave empty-handed. What's the chaos affirmation?
Okay, so I say regular chaos, CHAOS, is when we can't help acting out severely. My chaos is KHAOS, where we learn to keep healing and overcoming struggles. Understanding that life happens to us all, but that doesn't mean that it has to stop. We all have the ability to create a new normal as we keep healing and overcoming struggles. So here's the affirmation. My story is my story because it makes me who I am. I'm never ashamed of what I've been through. I'm now doing the best I can. My feelings are my feelings, even when it's a burden to hold. There is nothing wrong with saying it's hard to carry the load. I reset now to remember every situation encourages thought. When I realize, admit, and work through my issues, I can get raw. I embrace my whole truth as I break free. Forgive, release, embrace, and elevate over any dis-ease. One day at a time, no shame on the days I feel troubled. Working hard every day to keep healing and overcoming struggles. You guys got this.
Woo! We're going to need a copy of that. We're going to need a copy of that somewhere. We need to put that on Facebook. I need to have that up in my room.
Definitely. If you guys want a copy of it, it's on my Instagram page at Chaos Mindset. It's a video of me speaking it and actually of it written as well. Like, it's something that I've used for myself to learn how to keep healing and overcoming struggles. So I feel like if it helped me, maybe it can help somebody else.
All right, hold on, Candace. I'm about to get you one plug in here. Candace, did I get your website? I mean, your Instagram right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, Chaos Mindset. And then if people want to reach you to get like personal support, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
And so you can visit our website, which is www.khaosinc.org. And you can also email at ccox@chaosinc.org. And you can also give us a call, 314-399-9269.
Thanks for all of the gifts you all have shared with us tonight. Next week, when we come back, for those of y'all that want to continue to join us on this mission, we need 1 million households talking and doing something about adverse childhood experiences by 2025. We could do it sooner if y'all start sharing some of these posts. But we need a whole bunch of people trying to put a name to some of this shame that we grow up through in our childhood. So tune in next Thursday. The month of February is about self-love. So for those of y'all that are coming through every Thursday, we're doing self-love. It's Heart Health Month. So why not figure out how do we get to our heart? But if you tune in next Thursday, we're going to have some special guests come on the show. And you're going to walk away hearing, how should I have been talked to as a child? How should I have been talked to as a child? If you can dig into that conversation, not only does it help you feed that inner child emotional neglect that might have been missing, but it also teaches you how to start that conversation with the kids that might be in your presence today. So tune in if you want to hear about how should I have been talked to when I was a kid if I didn't get it back then. Make sense? Y'all, deuces. For those of y'all that's tuned in and stayed with us all night, we appreciate you. We're going to close out with Ace's current theme song. We got a lot of people giving their talents, gifts, writing music for us, and we love it. But we're going to close out. You guys are going to hear the song we played last week. Shout out to Kelsey, Kansas City, Missouri. She come through writing for us. So we love y'all. We'll see y'all next week. Thank you to all of my guests for showing up. please make sure you visit acesmatter.com. If you want to tell your story, we also have a way for you to sign up and do that. Darnell, you want to lead us out in prayer, and then I'm going to play the video, and then we out of here.
Okay. Before I pray, one of the things that I was going to say, because I heard a theme through everything is, God does command that we love, and we love everybody, but he don't say we have to fool with everybody just because we love them. So keep that in mind. But most gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we come before you right now, just first giving you glory, honor, and praise, Lord, just thanking you for being a sovereign God, Lord, one that's Alpha and Omega, that sits high and looks low. Lord, we thank you for the fellowship on tonight and the ACEs, Lord, that has been brought to the forefront, Lord. Lord, we ask that whoever is watching, that a seed has been planted, that if they need help, that they will start to seek help, and Lord, and begin to come out of their situations, and knowing that you can deliver them from anything that they are going through. All they have to do is take the step and call upon your mighty name, and you will be there, because you said you would never leave us nor forsake us, Lord. So, Lord, right now, we just thank you. We thank you for what you're going to do, what's in the works right now. And we just put it all in your hands, and we will forever give you the glory, honor, and praise. In your son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Y'all are dope. 2 heartbeats. Take care of your weekends. And let's go Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sorry, I got to put my plug in for my Chiefs because, I'm like still a Kansas City fan. Y'all have been so real. I love y'all. And until next week. Thank you.
Mentally abusing them, physically abusing them, sexually abusing them, adverse childhood experiences, mentally abusing them, physically abusing them, sexually abusing them. Adverse childhood experiences. We got the unpredictable stresses that children go through, like losing mommy or daddy, or watching them go to jail, forced to grow up because they've been touched down there. They even see parents depressed with no time to spare. This is why the kids are lonely, traumatized.